All right. So again, create courageous conversations. So we've got 4 classes for you. This one is defining your legacy. The next one, we will be talking about befriending our emotions. And then we'll talk about making choices that are what are our desires and wishes for life and end of life. And then also, how do we share what our choices are with our loved ones? And we'll also be sharing with you a way that you can work with us as Life Journey advisors to help you design your legacy if that's something that you're looking for. If this class kind of whets your appetite for wanting to know more and delve into what your personal preferences are, what your options are, then we are definitely here to help you with that. So Terry, she has been an LPN for over 25 years. And she started when she was very young. So, but she's been doing this for a very long time. I am a social worker. I've been working in the nursing home systems through NHC for 8 years. And so I've seen a lot of things in healthcare that inspired me to want to work with others to be able to know their options and to have a voice. We are conscious dying coaches, and what that means is we do coach you one-on-one if you desire through the 5 domains of life. We are more than just paperwork. We are more than just advanced directives. We're a whole body. We're a mind, body, and spirit. So we want you to feel secure in knowing what your spiritual needs are, your emotional needs are, your mental needs are, and your physical needs, as well as those practical pieces with your paperwork. We are Sacred Passage doulas, and if you did happen to watch our pre-video, you learned what a doula is, and we are simply, a doula means a woman who serves, or a person who serves these days. It can also be a man. The plenty of men are end-of-life doulas as well. But we're also healthcare advocates, and that's what we're here to do today, is to kind of encompass all of these ideas and letting you know that, again, you do have a voice, you do have a choice, and we want to help you make your voice be heard. So today we're going to start by defining your legacy. How is it that you're going to know what you want at the end of your life if you don't really know what your imprint is on this world and how you want to be remembered? I think that's a good place for us to start tonight, is to define who we are and what our values are and what values do we want to pass down to our loved ones. So a legacy is about the story that is told about you. Legacy is your gift to the world. No fluff, no magic, no luck, only what is true. This is not a story told from a place of ego or vanity. This is a story told about you based off of the value that you delivered on. And that's from legacyproject.org. I would encourage you to take a look at that website at some point if you need some ideas on how to share your legacy, which we will talk about here tonight as well. But that's a great website also to get ideas on. So here we have a quote that I really loved about it's from the Legacy Project founder, Susan Bosack, and her quote here is, "Legacy is about life and living. It's about learning from the past, living in the present, and building for the future." And we will talk a little bit here in a moment about what our legacy has on our future, and also what our ancestors in the past, how they've had an imprint on us today. First, I want us to watch this quick video.
Building a legacy has become somewhat of a lost art. Having the courage to leave behind a story that shines a light into the heart of others. The ability to give more than you receive and admire the endless actions it took. The time we have here is precious, and the way we spend it writes the story we intend to leave. What legacy will you leave behind? What is the gift that you have to share with the world? And will that gift echo through the minds and souls of many? Will your journey lay the foundations for others to aspire? Will that journey empower people to build something great because of your decisions to focus on the choices you've made? You don't have to achieve riches and fame to create a legacy that sparks creativity or inspires others to develop principles that align with their own journey. Your legacy could be led by simple acts of kindness, an approachable personality that's grounded by integrity, or an encouraging smile that fills an enjoyable moment. One of my favorite authors, Simon Sinek, has an amazing quote that says, "There's two ways to influence human behavior. You can either manipulate others or you can inspire them." I use this quote as a guideline to reflect on my day-to-day actions. In the role I play, am I manipulating the people around me? Or am I creating an environment that inspires action? When it's all said and done, how will my story be told? What am I doing today that will make all the difference in their lives tomorrow? And did I give more than I took? I have an image in my mind of how my journey will play out. I spend every day piecing that image together because the end result is my legacy waiting to be shared. I've realized that if I look at it as one giant step, the journey feels too far away. But if I can see it as small steps of single achievement pieced together along the way, the journey becomes the legacy. See, what we do moment by moment is the story. A legacy is not just an end result. It is the continued effort we give and the life we live, placed in the current moment. Create habits and decisions that make the journey of your life easier to move forward towards during each moment you spend. Write a story that provides purpose for every step along the way. And remember, the courage to control a future outcome is all you will ever need to build self-belief.
So I believe that we are living in a unique time right now, in that it is more acceptable, I think, to share our feelings with people and to be our authentic selves. It seems that past generations have not really had that luxury of being able to express how they're really feeling about something, especially for men. A lot of times it's been a kind of a world of suck it up and be a man kind of mentality, and women are, meek and mild, and we don't really show outward emotion. So I love that we're living in this time where sharing our emotions is not only accepted but encouraged. And so I feel like when we talk about emotions, which we'll be talking about next meeting, but also in leaving a legacy and just talking about end of life care and end of life in general, that brings about a lot of emotions. And thinking about, what legacy am I leaving? What legacy did my ancestors leave to me? Well, sometimes our ancestors left to us a painful legacy. And if you think about what we call ancestral grief and how those things are passed down from generation to generation, sometimes a whole group of people have experienced ancestral grief. And in a group of people, if you think about maybe Germany during World War I, World War II, and how those people fled harsh environment and how that's passed down through generations too. And then just something even simple, not simple, but even just in your own family, has there been a history of maybe abuse or staying quiet when we really wanted to share our authentic selves? And how can we change that for our future generations? So that's why I feel like, and Terry feels like, that the sharing of your legacy and defining what that is, sharing of your values, can be that catalyst that breaks the cycle of maybe ancestral grief and can create a legacy of hope, a legacy of change. And how does that feel for you when you think about what your ancestors might have gone through to get to this point and how you can change that for future generations? So that's our hope for you today, is to be able to leave here and define what are your values and what is your story. And as the video said, I really like how he says it's just simple acts of kindness that we do every day. It doesn't have to be some momentous change, something that we think is going to be groundbreaking or earth shattering, and something that you have to really think hard about. But simply, what is your passion? What are those values that you want to pass down? So with ancestral grief, we inherit not just genes, but unmetabolized grief. Lessons etched in silence by ancestors who couldn't speak their pain. So next time we meet for the emotional or befriending your emotions, we'll watch a video about what unmetabolized grief looks like. So we'll be defining that for you as well. But for now, we'll just put that on your radar, just to know that there is such a thing as unmetabolized grief, and maybe you can start to think about what that means and how we can change that for our future generations. In our safer havens of shared emotions, we have the power to break the cycle, letting our stories cleanse the lineage and pave the way for future generations. I just love that. So, your story is important for that very reason. And I want to stop here. And I'm going to let Terry share a little bit. She's got a very interesting story in her family on what happens when generations make a mark on one another and how emotional that can be.
Thank you, Ashley. We have a very close family now. When I grew up, it was very close. Every holiday, we were at my great-grandmother's. So I grew up with 4 generations going into a old wooden house down a lane in the country where we hunted Easter eggs, and we had Halloween, and we had Thanksgiving, and we had Christmas, and my mom was Santa Claus, and I did not know it for years. I just thought my mom had to go to the bathroom for a few minutes. But it was a tight, and it was a wonderful place to be, a very safe place. My grandmother died when I was 16, and there were 4 generations in the front room of that house the day she passed. She was in her little bed. She crossed her hands. She told her daughters that she was just tired and to just let her go. And they were dialing 911 just as quick as they could, telling her to hang on, that it was going to be okay. Now, I have to tell you, this woman was in her late 90s. And everybody was emotional in the room except me. 4th-generation, 16-year-old child against the wall. And all I could think about was, God, if you'll just go on and take her right quick before that ambulance gets here, my lady's going to be happy. And I could hear the ambulance. I could hear the sirens moving and coming up the lane and then down. And they stopped in front of the house and they were pulling the gurney out. I could see this from the wall that I was against because it was right at the front door. And as they pulled the gurney out, my grandmother took her last breath, which was a great and wonderful thing, except for what ensued later. The farm needed to be cut up. It was a large farm. There were 8 children, 6 were still living, and 1 son, and the rest girls. And he lived nearby. So he went, had the farm surveyed off, talked to his sisters, offered them the opportunity to sell, to buy any part of the farm that they wanted. Well, my grandmother was one of those who owned her house Her daughters all owned their house. Children were living at college or in California or wherever else. They didn't want any of it. Much the same with the other siblings. But Uncle John's children wanted to buy part of the farm, which was fine at the time. It was sold, it was divided up, everything seemed okay. Now, we weren't there for every holiday, so things had started to change a little bit. But then the hay was cut, and the first house was built on the farm. And do you know what happened? My cousin went and got a bale of the hay and did it across their yard so their grass would grow. And my great aunts went ballistic. They used the hay and didn't ask anybody. My family went from being on this farm at every holiday to not speaking to part of the family because they used 5 round bales of hay and didn't ask. Today, that sounds pretty petty, and it was. And it went on for 2 years until I was talking to my brother one day, and I said, you know what? This is kind of ridiculous, and I have a plan. He said, okay, what is it? I said, well, I'm going to call Aunt Jean. She was our sweet little great aunt that lived in Brentwood, Tennessee, high rent district. And I'm going to call her and tell her we're going to come see her. Okay, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. Well, it will be, because what I want you to do is go out on our farm and go get a round bale of hay and put it up in the back of the truck, because we're going to drive her bale of hay to Brentwood. And he looked at me and kind of got his little cocky grin. He said, this is going to be fun. I said, it is. So I called my aunt, asked her how she was doing and if she was going to be home. And I said, hey, look, Aunt Jean, I need to know if there's a corner to your property that's open. Kevin's coming in the truck. Well, honey, he can't come through the yard. I mean, we don't do that here. And I said, well, he's not really coming just to drive through your yard. He's going to bring your bale of hay. You cannot bring a bale of hay to Brentwood and put it in my front yard. I said, would you prefer that it's in the backyard? No, I don't want it at all. And I said, well, here's the deal. If you don't want that bale of hay, you're going to call your brother and you're going to talk to him. And all of y'all are going to go out to eat. And you're going to kiss and make up. Well, she fumbled around and tried to laugh and cut up. And, Terry, you're just so funny. I said, Aunt Jean, you've got 1 week to make this happen. And then I told my mom, who got so mad because I had pushed Aunt Jean against the wall, and that wasn't nice. I said, y'all aren't talking to each other. This has got to stop. So we didn't get to have any fun. We didn't get to take the bale of hay to Brentwood. My Aunt Jean called her brother, and they cried on the phone, and they went to the farm, and they cried on the farm, and they walked where the old house was, and they talked about it, and they made up. But you know what? It wasn't about the 5 bales of hay. That was just the thing that brought out the emotions that had been held because a family farm had been sold. Now, the backside was sold to people that weren't in our family that owned the property on the other road behind us. So part of the farm had gone out of the family. That was the real reason why the 5 bales of hay were the pain point. It was just that part of their legacy had been taken away, and it wasn't anything they could do about it. Your story is important. Every story is important, whether it's on 5 bales of hay. It's something that has affected you. Ancestral grief is there, and we don't ever think about it. We don't call it that. That was my family's, can you believe we're fighting over 5 bales of hay? Until I went to school and understood what we were really trying to process. And so we need to talk about those things, and we need to bring it out. And the time to do that is the present. The present is the time for us to discover our story, what we want it to be, what has given it meaning. Do you have wisdom that you would like to pass along? How do you want to be remembered? What is genuinely important to you? What is your story? And when we talk about this, we want to start a conversation. And the conversation first starts with us. Now, I'm going to tell you that when we look at this question and we talk about what is our legacy, what has given it meaning, I don't think we have those answers tonight. I think if we all think about it, it may be questions you've never thought about. So I know we're not technically in school, but I would like to ask you to participate this week and to begin your journey thinking about your legacy. And to do that, I would like to engage you in your first assignment in this course. I have a little bit of homework for you. And what I would like for you to do is journal, think about, talk about, describe the pivotal moments in your life that made you who you are. We all have them. We really start them very young in life. Did we walk early? Did we scoot across the floor and not want to walk because it took too much energy? Did we happen to get the first grade teacher that lived next door to us who would come across the backyard to tell my mom if I was having problems in the first grade? Pivotal moments a time or two in my life. We have them when we go to middle school. We have them with our first crush. They are all throughout our life in everything that we say or do, places that we are. It always adds to our life. It adds to the legacy. It adds to who they think we are. How are we perceived in our community? It definitely makes a difference in how our life goes. I want to take just a minute and I'll tell you one of the biggest pivotal moments in my life. It was the year 2020. And I'm going to take it all lock, stock, and barrel. At the beginning, we were in COVID, right? My mom was living in a memory care unit and it locked down. So seeing my mom went from seeing her 4 or 5 days a week to none for a few days. We were very blessed. She was at a small assisted living and they found ways to make things work where families could see their loved one as soon as they possibly could. But that was the first really traumatic thing. Don't take my mom away from me when she can't speak for herself. And I love you and you've taken really good care of her, but I've been there to be sure she was okay. That was a huge change. My dad's health declined a little bit. And we couldn't really figure that one out, but I decided it was because mom was not at home. But we moved her because daddy couldn't sleep at night. He couldn't rest during the day because my mom, if she wanted to go, she was gone out the back door. She was washing the car. She might wash it with Windex. She might wash it with Pledge, but her car was going to be nice and shiny. Now, she took the paint off the front of the car, keeping it clean with Pledge, but it was clean. And I knew he worried about her, but she was doing well. Then I had a divorce that year. It was finalized. I found out 2 months after it was finalized because, courts weren't meeting the way they used to. And I happened to just have the feeling one day that things just weren't right. And I called the attorney and I said, "Am I divorced?" And she laughed. She said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Am I divorced?" She said, "Why are you calling me?" I said, "I don't know." So she checked with the clerk's office, who had not mailed out the final decree, who had not stamped it all and sent it out. So, I hope I wanted that divorce because my time to appeal was already gone by the time I got it, right? Another pivotal moment in my life. In June, my mother passed away. She was walking 2 hours before, laughing, cutting up, asking where my daddy was, asking for ice cream before supper. She was one happy, sassy lady. And I got a call at 10 that I needed to come check on my mom. She wasn't feeling good. So off I went. And by midnight, my mom had left this earth. My dad was at home. We had a first cousin come and get in the house, wake him up, and tell him that mom had passed away, and he was there to take him if he wanted to go. And my dad, my anchor, said, "I've done everything I could do for mom. I'll see sis when she gets home." And he laid back down in the bed and rolled over and told Rob to lock the door. We buried my mom 3 days later. And, let's talk about it. We were in COVID, right? So you can't have funerals. You can't have this. And I said, "Oh, yes, we will. It's June and we're going to a family cemetery. All I want you to do is bring my mom home." So we had an outside funeral. And I got to see people I've not seen in years. And it was the most greatest and wonderful thing. One of the assistant DAs was there, and I kept looking at this lady, and she had a big brim hat on, and she had these sunglasses on. And I thought, who is that? Who is that? And about halfway through the short service we had for my mom, she dropped her glasses, and I saw who it was. And I just wanted to jump up and go hug her. But at the time, I couldn't. That was June. In September, my dad had a heart procedure. December 1st, my dad took his last breath here. So 6 months later, we're back at the same graveyard, taking my daddy home. So my pivotal moment was not a moment, it was a year. It was a year of significant changes that allowed me to sit down, to come home to the farm, to our family farm, and walk the ground on some beautiful days and say, what am I supposed to do now? My two rocks are not here. I'm divorced. My children are grown. What do I do? And I had talked to Ashley earlier about sacred passage doulas and end of life doulas. Ashley taken the course, and I thought about it and I said, you know what? That's what I'm supposed to do. That is actually, I've done that all my life in the community. People would call, "We're on the way to the emergency room with mom and we don't know what to do. Who do you use in home health?" They never had to think and process about resources for their family. So I did it all the time. I just didn't have a name for it. So now I do. And I have the opportunity to take what could have been a totally life-changing year that could be very negative for me and take years to process and come out of thinking about that, because grief stays with us, y'all. If anybody tells you that you just need a year, you go through the first of everything and then it's all fine. See, I see Miss Carolyn smiling. She's sitting there and I don't even know her, but she's going, uh-huh, absolutely. It's not just that first year. It's forever. It's forever. It comes in like soft waves sometime, and sometimes it comes in like the hurricane coming across. But I chose the best road and took that it allowed me the opportunity to do what I felt like I needed to do to leave a positive legacy. So my present in 2020 allowed me to change. I was a fixer. I was a type A personality. I took care of anything. Call me and tell me your problems, and by Georgia, I can fix them. And I learned that I can fix everybody's problem, but it really doesn't help them, because what I really need to do is listen to them and give them the opportunity to heal themselves. So my pivotal point, again, was an entire year. It was a hard year, but it was a good year. I was known as a nurse, a mom, a daughter, a sister, all of those kind of things. But I wasn't really sure what my legacy was, because I always told people, and maybe it resonates with you, I was different in each one of those people. I didn't have all the same feelings and emotions I could portray at different times in my life. And that's where we shove down emotions and hold them. It's better to talk about them, to express them, and to make sure that you establish your legacy exactly where you want it to be. How do you tell your story? How do you start thinking about your legacy? What do people think about you? How do they see you? How do we share with future generations? Because to me, that's what's important, is that we don't have all of Mom's crystal and not know why it's important, or why we have all of Dad's knives or guns and don't know where they came from. That's part of your legacy as well. How do we share that? There are so many ways we can think about, and here's a few I would like to bring to you tonight. Honoring your stories. Remember the goodness that's there, okay? We want to share with others. It might be a recording, it might be letters, crafts, songs. Do you write poetry? Could be. Passing along wisdom. I took a course the other day and it said, what is one thing in life you would like to pass on to this group? And I was like, one thing? My goodness, tie my hands behind my back. But what is it? What is important? Letter writing. You can write ethical wills. Giving away mementos. You know, I learned a long time ago that if my kids want something in my house and I'm not using it, I looked at them and said, take it now. Enjoy it. This is where it came from. This is why I've got it. Enjoy it and make it your own. I think that's very important. A lot of people are very crafty. I've got a cousin that etches ostrich eggs and opens them up and puts like little murals and stuff inside the egg. She's so talented. And I said, have you put a name of all the family members on them you want to have them? Oh, well, no, I don't care. They can have whatever they want. And I said, no. What's your legacy to all your now great grandkids that she has? She'd never thought about it. So, looking at things you want to give away and talking about your family now is how you can start your story. Another thing is people that make quilts. I've got a quilt my grandmother made for me, and it is so hard for me to take it out of the plastic and use it because I don't want to lose the last thing she made for me. But she'd be well over 100 now. And my sister-in-law told me if I just use it, if I ruined it, she'd make me another one because quilts were made to be loved and used. Coming together, community gatherings to celebrate. Have you ever heard of living funerals? Why do we wait until someone dies to be able to tell them how much they mean to us? I think it's important for us to do those type things. And I want to tell you that I think you can all resonate with the fact of going to see families at the funeral home. The casket's there, sometimes open, sometimes closed. We all stand in line for that few minutes to talk to the family. I remember doing that with my mom and my dad. What touched me most was the people that came through. Some I knew, most I knew, some I didn't. But the stories that they told me about my parents, the things they did for them or their parents or people in the community that I never knew. And after Daddy's funeral, Kevin and I, my brother, were sitting here at the house, and I looked at him and I said, I wonder if Mom and Dad really knew how much they were loved. Why can't we tell those stories to each other now? Why don't we still get together on Sundays and support each other and give those special things to people? One of the girls I graduated high school from showed up when my mom passed away, and she hugged me and she said, Terry, I will never forget the day your mom came and washed my hair one afternoon because we were having pictures made at school the next day, and her mom had broken her right arm, her dominant arm. And Mom was so worried that my hair would be dirty for pictures. And your mom called that day and asked Mom how she was doing, and my mom broke down crying. She said, when I got off the school bus that afternoon, your mom pulled in the driveway. And she washed my hair, and Kathy's hair was down to her waist. She said she was so loving with me, and she started out saying, now Terry's hair isn't this long, and I hope I don't pull you bald-headed, and just laughed and cackled out loud, and they had the best time. I didn't know about that. I had never heard that story, and I wondered if Mom really knew the impression she made on Kathy by doing a small favor for her friend. It is very important for us to talk and discuss the things that we want to have done. So very, very important. So I would like for you to think about those things together. And then I would like for Ashley to go a little bit deeper in this conversation.
Thank you, Terry. That's a lot to think about. And, I was wondering if we could just have a little discussion. You've heard a lot of us, of our stories and a lot of things that we have to say, but I wanted to know what your thoughts are on sharing your legacy with your loved ones. Is there some sort of talent that you have or some sort of way that you've already started that process? Making a legacy statement or writing a legacy letter? Has anybody heard of those terms before? Legacy statement or letter? Have you ever thought about writing your own obituary? That's an interesting exercise. I did that when I was in school getting my master's, and it's a rather unique master's degree. It's called Aging Services Leadership, and it was through Lipscomb University in Nashville. But that's one of those things that we did, was write our own obituary. And that was kind of my first introduction into talking about end of life and thinking about myself in terms of, well, being mortal, I guess you could say. And doing this work was something that was new to me and very moving, actually. And it was a chance for me to share what's important to me. And at the time, I had young children, and thinking about maybe not being there to see them grow up or to get married, or those milestones that you often want to be there for. What does it look like if I'm not there for those things? What type of thing do I want to be remembered for? What's my obituary going to say about me? So that was an interesting exercise for me to do, maybe for you as well. But a legacy letter is something that you can do, that is something that you can leave behind. So a legacy letter offers an opportunity to reflect on your important life experiences and transmit your values and blessings to your children, grandchildren, or other loved ones. And I like what was shared about the journals, because that's something that is a daily practice. And sometimes it's not a daily practice. For me, I do have a journal, but I don't do it every day. But I do often write in there some things that are important to me, things that I pray about, some things that I discuss with my friends, some things that I have wishes for in my marriage and in my family. And I want one day for somebody to crack open that journal and see what was important to me. And what I want you to think about tonight, too, is that even deeper than sharing those things with your family, but have you considered that how you die is just as important as how you live? And what I mean by that is, how we die sometimes is part of that ancestral grief that we talked about before. And somehow we've lost our way. Terry talked about having her grandmother die right there with generations surrounding her. Now, they did freak out a little bit, and things maybe didn't happen the way they hoped. But what happened to that community feel? What happened to that peaceful passage of our loved ones? How did we get to where it's so clinical? How did we get to be so fearful of the end of life? Somewhere along the way, we have had some fear instilled in us, and that is my passion, and also that of Terry as well, that we want to take that fear out of thinking about end of life. And that's what this series really is about, and being able to not only think about it in terms of healing for generations, in terms of helping us live a more purposeful life, but how can we think about it in ways that it encourages future generations? How can we think about it in a way that even in how we die, that is our legacy? I don't know if anybody has ever thought about that before here in this class, but taking what has become something that is fearful into something that is peaceful. And that's not easy to do. It's kind of like turning a giant ship around 180 degrees. We've gotten backwards somehow, and now we're trying to turn that ship around, and it's not easy to do. But if we do that together, then we can change things for generations to come. And that's what we want for you tonight, is to think about your legacy. And again, next time we meet, we're going to talk about that emotional piece of, yeah, thinking about it is emotional. And there's so many emotional things that come with thinking about end of life. So we want you to think about all these things in terms of, what do I want my end of life to look like? Because if I think about those things, then I can set that aside with some peace of mind, and I can live my life so that it points that arrow in that direction of, these are my values. I'm living my life to the fullest. I'm living my life the best I can. And even if I am messing up in some way, I can use that as a learning experience, not only for myself to keep moving on, but how am I going to use that for a learning experience for generations to come? So Terry has put in our chat over there some homework that we want you to work on for next time. But earlier in the slides, you saw, journal your pivotal moment in your life that made you who you are. And that kind of defines your values. And then we also want to think about, how do you want to be remembered? So that's your vision for how when you get to the end of your life and you're establishing, what's my legacy been? What did I do for others that shined a light in this world and for my future generations? What is that thing you want to be remembered for? So journal about your pivotal moment. Journal about, how do you want to be remembered? And also, let's take an action step towards that. If there's something you need to be doing to get towards that vision, what's that one thing that you can start doing today? Doesn't have to be big. It can be as simple as buying a journal or buying some fabric for a quilt. Doesn't have to be big. Something small and attainable. We call that a SMART goal. Specific, it's measurable. You can check it off the list. It's easy to know when you've checked it off the list. It's attainable. Doesn't have to be climbing Mount Everest, but just going down to Walmart and picking something out. And does it align with your values? And also, when are you going to do that by? Let's put a due date on that so that we know that you're going to do it. So we're going to put a due date on that, hopefully, let's say in 2 weeks when we meet again. We'll make that be our due date. So I would like to discuss for just a moment, was there something in the list of legacy projects that resonated with you? Is there something that you hadn't thought of yet? We did talk about journaling. Is there something else that you might have thought of or not thought of before that might be a good idea for you to start doing? So we can get your mind and your juices flowing on that action step. Something that I love to do is scrapbooking. Now, back in the early days when I first started having kids, it was all paper. So we were cutting, we were pasting, literally, in paper scrapbooks. All of our friends would get together, we'd go scrapbooking. And all of our kids would be playing together, and we'd have all of our scrapbooks and all of our supplies. And oh my goodness, y'all don't even know how much money I spent on scrapbooking supplies. It was crazy. But I love to go look at those now and see all the hard work that I put into those. And I just hope that somebody appreciates that one day. I don't know if they will, but hopefully they will. But now I'm into journaling and scrapbooking on a digital platform called Shutterfly. So I do still scrapbook, but it's much easier and much less mess and a little bit cheaper. But it's something that's fulfilling to me because it's my life in pictures, sort of. But that's one way. I know lots of people have their photos in a box, I've heard, where they stuff them in a drawer, and now they're all on our computers. So what do we do with them? So it is my goal to at least scrapbook every vacation. So I've kind of gotten that far. And then going back and doing each year, we'll have a scrapbook, I hope. But if not, at least we have those vacations done. So that's important to me. And a legacy of travel and togetherness and fun. I follow this person on, a podcast. Her name is Mel Robbins, and she talks about procrastination. I don't know if you've listened to Mel Robbins or not, but she's a great motivator. And so when I feel like procrastinating, I think about her and her 5 second rule. And so her 5 second rule says that if you just start counting down from 5 to 1, go, it takes that moment of hesitation away from your brain. So if you're thinking about, I need to do a scrapbook, I need to write a letter, I need to craft my legacy statement, but, and then you hesitate. What's that hesitation say? It's saying to your brain, something's wrong. I got to be doing something else instead of that. So if you do the simple 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go and do the thing, it takes that moment of hesitation out of your brain, which I think is kind of neat. I use it to get out of bed in the morning, even like just do the countdown and get on up. So maybe if you're having trouble getting started on something, then you can put that into practice and that can help. Well, I hope you're excited to start a project. And again, the reason we do this as end of life doulas and coaches, Terry and I, is because we are looking for you to complete your circle. So again, a lot of times people have that paperwork piece, but they're missing a lot of the other pieces in order to feel complete in life and to feel that they have things wrapped up. And if you're feeling incomplete in life, this is a good way to start and to think about, how do I want to be remembered? I have a lot of clients that I've worked with in the past, and they get quite hung up on that and thinking about, is this it for me, or will my legacy live on? And I've even had clients who they do have a terminal diagnosis and they're afraid to let go. And that's the reason, is because they haven't established what they are leaving behind, or they're afraid they won't be remembered. And so by doing this, we're taking that fear piece out. And I mentioned fear earlier. And how did we become fearful of end of life? Who put that fear in our minds? And if this is one step that we can take to kind of chisel away that wall of fear by saying, okay, my presence, my energy, my personhood is going to live on in some way, even by the small things that I do. And we can chip away at those bricks in the wall and alleviate that fear, because where there is knowledge, there is no fear. We're going to shed a light on that so that it can't live there anymore. So as we move on through this series, we're going to, again, talk about emotions. And again, we're going to talk about what are our options in healthcare, what are our options in end of life care, what are our options in after death care. So many things to think about that might put a burden on our hearts and minds. And what if we were able to get those out onto paper, share them with someone that we love, take that burden off of us so that we can live free, live light, and live joyous in life with what we have, because we're not dying yet. We still have tomorrow, so we think, or we may not. But no matter what comes in life, we have peace, because we're going to learn how to have that peace and take the fear out of end of life. So, but again, for homework, we're going to take action. Think about what you want your legacy to look like. What is one thing you can do this week to take a step toward that goal? When will you do this? So we call that establishing a vision and setting goals towards that vision. So we will do this for homework for this 2 weeks, and then next week we'll build upon this and we'll take some more action steps. Again, Terry and I are life journey advisors. We do healthcare navigation. We will do power of attorney for people who don't have anyone in their life that can speak on their behalf. We do end of life coaching. So we do help establish that vision, action steps, and hold you accountable if that's what you want us to do. We do hold bedside vigils and family education. And we do a free 30-minute consultation if you want to talk to us about that first. But we do have affordable rates for those because we want to make this accessible for everyone. And that's our QR code to take us to our informational form that you can fill out to see if we are a match to work with each other. Terry, do you want to wrap us up with any thoughts?
I think that when we first look at legacy or things to do to share with families, we kind of are exactly where we are tonight. Gee, I don't know. I've got baby books to finish before I can start. So I hope each one of you finds something that you want to do to add to your legacy, whether it's taking from someone else or giving to another. Enjoy your time until we meet again.
We'll see you all in 2 weeks, and we will build upon this idea and hopefully have some great discussion. So thank you all so much for being here. So nice to see y'all and meet y'all and hear your thoughts. Thank you so much. Good night.
Bye.